Okay, welcome back everybody. Mr. Balker here for the Careers Exploration class. Today we're going over another chapter, specifically Unit 2, Lesson 3. Name of that chapter is Government, Law, and Public Safety Careers. The very first section they have in this is regulation. What are regulations? Regulations are rules. Rules that we have usually to keep people safe, okay? A good example of that, if you're an electrician, okay, and you're going to wire up houses for people, you have to follow a certain set of rules known as code. There are code regulations because if you don't follow the code, you could cause problems with fires and various issues like that. A good example of that is the way that wires get joined together, okay? If you've got wires in your attic and this one isn't long enough to connect to the spot that you want it to go, and you simply put a connection, put some tape over it, throw it up there, code. That is a code violation. What you have to do is take those wires, put them in a special type of a box known as a junction box, put special nuts on those wires to keep them together or lugs that attach them directly together, and that then will protect those wires so that they're unlikely to cause a fire. That's code regulation. When a person builds something that's out of code, and the building inspector comes, the building inspector is going to notify them, hey, that's not up to code, you can't keep that. And sometimes we'll make them tear the whole thing apart and start over. I know, sounds a little draconian, but these are things that keep people safe. So here are some code and inspector type jobs. A border inspector, a cargo inspector, an immigration officer, a home inspector, and a health inspector. A couple that I want to talk about there. The cargo inspector, that's a cool job. One of the big things that we've got in American society right now is devices that use lithium-ion batteries. Well, these devices have been known to break. The batteries are known to go into a runaway mode where they basically short within the cell and they produce a tremendous amount of heat until they eventually catch fire and burn to the ground. Consequently, if you ship something with a whole bunch of lithium-ion batteries, you have to tell people. Bell store. So you have to tell people that there's lithium batteries inside this cargo. And if you don't, and they inspect it and check it, there's fines and penalties to pay. Why? Well, they're not just trying to catch you. If somebody knows that there's lithium batteries in there, they're going to have the appropriate fire suppression stuff around to prevent that from setting fire to the building it's stored in, the ship that it's on, the container that it's in, whatever. They're going to have the ability to protect people from those things. That's the reason that's an important job. An immigration officer. Immigration is a net good thing for our country. Those of you that think this is just a political subject and want to complain about it, don't really get it. Immigration is how we get new people to come to our country that we all share to improve it. Okay, if you look at America, it's got a very diverse heritage and a very rich history. I'm not from here. My family was Dutch. They come here years and years ago because they were lured by the idea of free open farmland in the wonderful green pastures of Wyoming. If you've ever been to Wyoming, there's not wonderful green pastures. It's dirt, rocks, and 80-mile-an-hour wind all day, every day. But they came nonetheless. So what's an immigration officer do? They manage that process for people. People that have come here navigating to gain citizenship, to become a productive member of society. It's not easy. It's a very long process with 10,000 papers. And so these guys help those people navigate that paperwork so that they can have a legal path to citizenship and permanent residency. Great job, very important job. I think you get what those are all about. Inspectors enforce the codes. As I said, you see there, Hank. Hank sometimes goes a little crazy with the camera. Inspectors make sure that the rules are enforced. If he comes and sees that something's wrong, they're going to tell you, look, no, you can't do that. And yeah, it could be viewed as one of those authoritarian, hey, look, I'm in charge and you're going to obey me. Or you can really look at it from the altruistic standpoint of, this is the best thing for everybody. We're trying to make sure that everybody's okay. Okay? Rules and regulations. So here are some rules and regulations that do exist and why. I've already given you some examples, but here's some additional ones. Okay, let's talk about some specific rules that exist. Workplace rules. Here's a good example. Headgear. If you're working at a construction site, you have to wear a hard hat. Why? Well, because my buddy Sean has got butterfingers. And he's up there 25 feet, and he goes to put his hammer back in his tool belt, and he misses and lets go, and it donks me on the head, and I'm no longer able to use the left side of my body. That's why. By having a hard hat, it hurts, but in theory the hammer bounces off the top of my head, and I chuck a rock at Sean, and we solve this down to the ground level. That's the reason that we have regulations. Again, it's to promote safety. It's not so that we, can have a fashion contest who has the coolest hard hat. Welders have to wear masks and gloves. Why? So they don't burn themselves to death and blind themselves. You want your employee to be able to do something for a long time. Welding is brutal on the skin. I've got a brother that did it for a while, and his arms are tan from welding. It produces so much UV light that it has actually tanned his arms. It's crazy. Employees have to let people have breaks. Why? Because people without given breaks will start to make mistakes. And in some careers, that can be very costly. Imagine if your doctor, your surgeon, hadn't had a break in the 18 hours of his 24-hour shift. You think he's likely to make a mistake? Yeah. You gotta give people breaks so that they can do their job right. And this is even as simple in a job like working at Brahms. If I'm working at Brahms and I've been working 7 hours straight on my feet, running around making people, drinks and fries and such, and I haven't had a break, is it possible that I'm going to make a mistake on something, cross-contaminate food, allow something to fall into the fry bin and not notice it? Yeah, that can hurt people. You got to give people breaks because that way they can do their job better. We're again in the safety business. Revenue and taxation. They got a cute little bit here about Ben Franklin saying that there's only two things you can count on, death and taxes. There's lots more you can count on that, but those things you can definitely count on. What are taxes? Taxes are money that is collected from the population to pay for things that benefit the public good. Examples: the school that I'm standing in, the roads that we drive on, unless they're private roads, the libraries, the police stations, the fire stations. Why do we have all these things? Well, because it would suck if only people who paid could use the road, or only people that paid would have their house taken care of in the event of a fire, right? Wouldn't that suck? Fire department comes out to the house. Hey, I don't think you paid your fire bill this month. We're gonna have to let this thing burn down. What? What about the police? Same thing, right? Hey, we're not gonna arrest these people that are stealing your TV because you haven't paid your police bill. It doesn't make sense. So by funding these things for the greater good of everybody, making it a public service, we can ensure that we have adequate protections in place. Now, they use the example here of the library. I hate one of the lines they put in the library thing here. And yeah, I know I'm gonna keep injecting my opinion in these things all the time, but right here, do you use your local public library? Libraries are paid for with taxes. Taxes buy books, pay for the building, pay the salaries of the librarians. Libraries bring books and computers to everyone, even people who can't afford to buy their own. Come on, man. Even people that can't afford to buy their own. Everybody's good for the library. I can afford to buy my own books, still go to the library. Most books you read one time. Libraries are just a smart way to house that information. So I don't agree with the way they phrased it, but that's not my problem. If you don't go to the library, you're sort of throwing money away. You could be using it for something else. So if you like to read, still go to the library. Don't assume that it's just for people that can't afford it. What an unusual statement. Anyway, I'm on a tangent, I know. So, those are things that are paid for by taxes. The skills and abilities required for people who deal with taxation and revenue generation are different. IRS agent. I have a friend who has that profession. It's intense. They have to navigate certain legal and financial responsibilities that they know what the rules are. And they have to make sure that those rules are enforced for the constituency of our area to be sure people aren't skirting the laws. That's it. It's a very convoluted thing, but it's a big job. Tax attorney. That's another big job. If you're a lawyer and you want to go and take care of people who've maybe made a mistake on their taxes, and don't want to pay $10 million in the fines to the government, tax attorneys help do that. Other things, public and city budgeting or accounting workers. Look, the city has a budget. Everybody's got a budget. Money comes into the city. How do they decide where it goes? Well, you got to have somebody working that says, well, this is how much we've got. These are the things that we've got to pay for this year. So the line is here. So this is how much money we've got to spend. That's it. It's not as simple as just, well, we got $8 million, let's go spend it. No, we already got money coming out of there. So we got to know how much and where can we save some. Maybe we can get rid of this thing here that's costing us a ton of money that we don't use. Maybe. That's what their job is, okay? Okay, the next thing they're going to talk about, public management and administrative careers that are involved with the city are city managers, court clerks, and chamber of commerce officials. These are hired professions that perform very specific tasks. They take very specific skills. A city manager does a lot of the things that what people think a mayor would do, right? A mayor is more of a legislator and a figurehead. A city manager is actually going out there and looking at what's going on in the city. Whenever they decide which construction projects to go and do and approve, all of that information comes in from special sessions where they have the counselors and such discuss problems. But city managers provide hard data and say, look, we've got an issue here. This thing's breaking down here. We keep spending money over here and we need to fix this. That's what a city manager does, is they make sure that we know what needs taken care of. Court clerks. If and when a person happens to go to court, you need a person there to say, all right, what are you here for? Great, that's going to be over here. Take their money, take their name, sign them into the right thing. That way they can go to the right place. A pretty straightforward job, but there's a lot of forms. When you go to get married, if and when, you will need to get a document from the court. You'll have to talk to a court clerk in order to do that. Chamber of Commerce officers. The Chamber of Commerce is a little section of the government that deals specifically with commercial enterprise. Their job is to make sure that we have a healthy business district, that we're getting people involved, going forward. We're not having things closed down. A good example of that, Detroit, Michigan does not have an exceptionally productive and successful Chamber of Commerce right now. Many of the factories and businesses that supported that great town are now shut down due to automotive manufacturing trends changing, relocation and such. Chamber of Commerce in Tulsa is doing a very good job with the revitalization of downtown. The Pearl District in the Rose District in Broken Arrow is run by the Broken Arrow Chamber of Commerce. And they're revitalizing areas and trying to bring in new stuff. Oh, hey, you should come over here. We got great stuff going on, blah, 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 blah. That's what those things do. So, very last thing it has down here in the blue box, and again, always watch the blue boxes. If you have a problem in your city, you're going to deal with a city manager or administrators. They need to be problem solvers. Imagine you're having a problem in a nearby business not taking care of their building. You might ask your city to help you deal with the problem. This is true. If your neighbor has barking dogs, you're going to have to deal with somebody in the city who can help you sort that out. That is what city officials do. So, that concludes this lesson. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I will see you guys again real soon.